The alien princess froze when she saw me. The truth shocked me. HFY Stories. From the starship's observation deck, the surface looked like a painting, with rivers of sparkling blue, tall forests that shimmered in silver light, and mountains that seemed to touch the sky. He had traveled across many star systems, seen many alien worlds, but Zephyra made his heart beat faster. There was something alive about the planet, something powerful and old, yet peaceful. The starship landed in a wide, smooth clearing. The engines hummed and powered down, leaving only the soft sound of wind brushing through the tall grass. Eric stepped out of the ship, taking a careful look around. The air was clear, crisp, and filled with a faint, sweet scent he could not name. Around him the ground glowed faintly, as if the planet itself was alive and watching him. He was not alone for long. From the edge of the forest, figures appeared, walking slowly toward him. They moved with grace, their steps silent but confident. At first, Eric thought they were soldiers or guards, but as they came closer, he realized they were something more, something royal. At the center of the group was a woman. She stood taller than the others, and her posture was perfect, like she had been trained all her life to hold herself with strength and dignity. Her hair was a strange shade of violet, almost glowing under the planet's sunlight. Her eyes were even more striking, deep, violet, and sharp, with an intelligence that seemed to see straight into Eric's mind. He froze for a moment, unsure if he should speak first. The princess stopped a few meters away from him. Eric noticed that for a brief moment her body stiffened. Her eyes widened slightly and her lips parted, as if she were trying to speak but could not find words. Eric's stomach sank. He had faced aliens before, some fierce, some strange, but he had never seen one react like this. Her attendants glanced nervously at each other, whispering in a language Eric could not understand, but the tension was clear. Eric forced himself to speak. "Hello. I am Lieutenant Eric Mason from Earth," he said, keeping his voice calm. "We come in peace. We mean no harm to your planet or your people." The princess's gaze did not move from his face. Her eyes seemed to burn with recognition, though Eric had no idea why. He stepped a little closer, trying not to seem threatening, and held out a hand. She did not take it. Instead, she took a small step backward, as if trying to put distance between them. Her attendants murmured again, more urgently this time. Eric felt a chill run down his spine. Something about her reaction told him this was not ordinary fear or suspicion. She knew him, or at least she thought she did. One of her attendants, a woman with silver hair and bright green eyes, stepped forward and spoke in halting Galactic standard, the common language of the galaxy. "Princess Leora, she is surprised. We do not understand why." Eric nodded slowly. "I don't understand either. But I am here to talk, to meet her if she will allow it." Princess Leora's eyes narrowed. For a moment her whole face softened, and Eric thought she might smile, but then her expression hardened again. She turned slightly, signaling the group to wait. "You should come with me," she said in careful Galactic standard. Her voice was clear but calm, carrying authority that made Eric stop in his tracks. He followed her, walking across the soft, glowing ground. The forest came closer, and the trees were unlike anything he had seen. Their trunks shimmered faintly, with colors shifting from blue to green as the sunlight moved. The leaves were long and thin, and they seemed to hum softly as the wind passed through them. Eric wondered if the trees were alive in ways humans could not understand, if they could hear and feel, and perhaps even know why the princess had reacted the way she did. They arrived at a palace, though calling it a palace seemed too small. It was a massive structure made of a crystal-like material that reflected light in every color of the rainbow. The walls seemed almost alive, glowing faintly from within. Eric felt a sense of awe mixed with a strange fear. This place was beautiful, but it was also powerful. It belonged to someone important, someone with the right to command attention and respect. Inside, the palace was even more incredible. The halls were wide, with floors that shone like glass. Light floated in the air, moving as if it had its own mind. Eric noticed strange symbols carved into the walls, glowing softly. He did not recognize any of them, but they made him feel as if the place held secrets beyond his imagination. Princess Leora led him to a quiet garden inside the palace. The garden was enclosed by walls of crystal, but the sky above looked real, with clouds drifting slowly as if on a breeze. Flowers of every imaginable color grew in carefully arranged patterns. Birds with translucent wings flew quietly among the branches, singing songs that seemed to resonate in Eric's chest. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Eric tried to find something to say, something that would break the tension, but the princess's eyes held him in place. Finally she spoke, her voice softer this time. "Why are you here?" Eric hesitated. "We are explorers. Humans have traveled far across the stars. We seek knowledge to understand other worlds and their people. I did not expect to see someone like you." Princess Leora's eyes flickered. She looked at him as if trying to see through him into his very thoughts. You should not be here, not now, not like this." Eric felt a knot in his stomach. "I do not understand. Should I leave?" She shook her head slowly. "No, I mean you cannot leave, not yet. There is something I must see, something I must know." Eric frowned. "See what? Know what?" Leora looked away, her hand brushing the petals of a glowing flower. "It is difficult to explain. Something from long ago, you remind me of it." Eric tilted his head. "From long ago, I do not understand." The princess closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "Centuries ago, your people, your ancestors came to our world. They saved us from destruction. They did things we did not fully understand at the time. They left and we never saw them again. But your face, it carries something of them, something familiar." Eric's heart raced. "You mean I look like someone who saved your people long ago?" She opened her eyes again, and for the first time Eric saw a flicker of fear behind them. "Not just look like. You carry the same spirit, the same courage, the same spark." Eric felt a shiver run down his spine. This was impossible. How could she know this? How could she recognize something in him that belonged to a time long before he was born? He tried to speak, but no words came. The princess finally took a step back as if the words had exhausted her. "I must tell someone, but I cannot. Not yet. You have changed everything by coming here. Everything." Eric did not know what to say. He had met many aliens, faced many challenges, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. A princess, a ruler, someone of unimaginable power, was frozen at the sight of him, and she could not explain why. He wanted to ask more, to demand answers, but he respected her silence. Instead, he said quietly, "I am here to help in any way I can. I do not know why you reacted that way, but I am here." For a long time they stood in silence, the glowing flowers and humming birds around them. The air seemed heavy with anticipation, as if the planet itself waited for what would happen next. Eric realized that this was only the beginning. Zephyra was a beautiful world, full of secrets, and somehow he was at the center of one of its oldest mysteries. Finally, Leora spoke again, her voice steady but soft. "You must understand, what you represent here is not just human strength. It is history. You carry the past even if you do not know it. And some people will want to use that against us. You must be careful." Eric nodded. "I understand. I will be careful. But I want to help. I want to know what happened and why you reacted like you did." Leora's gaze softened slightly. "Perhaps, in time, you will know. For now, we must proceed carefully. There are others who watch, others who would not welcome your arrival." Eric felt a mix of excitement and fear. He had expected adventure in space, but never like this. He had expected to meet aliens, but never one who recognized something in him that he did not even understand. And he realized in that moment that his journey on Zephyra would change him forever. As the sun set over the crystal mountains and the glowing rivers, Eric Mason stood in the garden with Princess Leora, two strangers bound by a past they could not fully see. yet somehow connected by a destiny that had been written long before either of them had been born. He did not know what lay ahead, but he knew one thing for certain. Zephyra had secrets, and he was now part of them. Eric Mason spent the first night aboard the Zephyrian Palace in a room that looked like it had been carved from crystal. The walls shimmered with soft, moving colors, and the bed was wide and comfortable, unlike anything he had slept on before. He lay awake for hours, thinking about Princess Leora's words. The idea that his ancestors had saved the Zephyrians centuries ago seemed impossible, yet her reaction made him believe there might be some truth in it. Early the next morning, he was led to the palace library. The library was enormous, stretching for hundreds of meters, with walls made of glowing crystal shelves. Strange books floated in midair, opening and closing themselves as if alive. Eric walked carefully, trying not to touch anything. His eyes widened at the colors, the light, and the quiet hum of energy that filled the room. Princess Leora appeared, walking gracefully beside him. She did not smile, but her expression was less rigid than the day before. "You must see this," she said. "It will help you understand why your presence here matters." Eric followed her to a section of the library where a large crystal orb rested on a pedestal. It glowed with a soft white light. Leora touched the orb lightly, and it expanded, filling the room with moving images. Eric could see a world from long ago, Zephyra as it had looked centuries before. Humans, wearing old-fashioned suits and armor, moved among the Zephyrians. Eric recognized the humans immediately. They were tall, strong, and confident. The Zephyrians looked smaller, fragile, and afraid. Leora spoke quietly. "Your ancestors came here when Zephyra was under attack from another star system. We had no way to defend ourselves. Entire cities were being destroyed. Then your people appeared and drove the enemy away. They saved millions of lives, and then they vanished." Eric stared at the images, unable to move. He felt a strange connection, almost as if he had been there, although he knew it was impossible. They left no record?" he asked. Leora shook her head. "Very little. We remember stories passed down from generation to generation, but no one alive today has seen them. And yet," she looked at Eric, her eyes wide, "there is something in you, something familiar. It is why I froze when I saw you." Eric tried to speak, but he could not find words. He had heard stories about humans making a difference across the galaxy, but never like this. His ancestors, people he had never met, had saved an entire civilization. And now he was here, centuries later, in the palace of a princess who was reacting to him as if he were the same person. Leora continued, "We do not know why your bloodline carries this spark. Perhaps it is courage, perhaps it is willpower, or perhaps it is something more. But humans have a strength we have never seen before. That is why I could not move when I first saw you. I recognized something powerful." Eric nodded slowly, trying to absorb the weight of her words. "I wish I could understand it fully. I wish I could know why it matters so much now." She turned and walked to a small balcony overlooking the palace gardens. The sun had risen higher, and the glowing rivers and silver forests outside reflected golden light into the room. "It matters now because others are watching," she said. "There are those who would use humans or what humans represent for their own gain, and your arrival here, it has changed everything." Eric frowned. "Who is watching? Who could care so much about me arriving here?" Leora did not answer immediately. She looked out over the forest, her expression serious. "Zephyra has enemies, neighboring systems who believe we are weak. Until now, they have assumed humans are weak too. But you are a living reminder that humans can be more than they appear, that you can tip the balance of power, and some will not allow that." Eric swallowed hard. This was different from anything he had faced in the military or in exploration missions. So they might attack. "You mean war?" Leora nodded slowly. "It is possible. That is why you must stay close, and why you must understand our history. If you know it, you can help us prepare. You may be the key to protecting Zephyra. Eric felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He had traveled to many worlds, faced alien species, and survived battles in space, but this was different. He was not just exploring or fighting. He was part of a story that had begun centuries before he was born, and he could not fail. Over the next few hours, Leora led him through more of the palace archives. They found ancient records, glowing holographic images, and written histories carved into crystal. Eric studied them carefully, noting how humans had helped the Zephyrians with technology, strategy, and courage. Every record showed humans doing something extraordinary, often at great risk. What amazes me most, Eric said, is that they did all this without expecting anything in return. They didn't stay, they just helped and left. Leora looked at him, a faint smile on her face. That is why they are remembered as heroes, and that is why you matter. You carry the same blood, the same courage, even if you do not realize it yet. As the day continued, they walked through the palace gardens again. Eric noticed small details he had missed the day before. The way the flowers seemed to glow brighter near Leora, how the birds' songs changed when she walked past, how the light itself seemed to follow her. It was as if the entire palace recognized her, and perhaps even recognized Eric in some way. Suddenly, Leora stopped at a small fountain. The water shimmered with colors he could not name. She touched it gently, and the water formed an image of the surrounding galaxy. "Look here," she said. "These are our neighbors, the systems that may not welcome your arrival. And these," she pointed to a cluster of bright stars, "are the ones who are already suspicious. They remember the old stories, or at least what little they know of humans." Eric studied the holographic stars. "So some systems will see me as a threat just because of who my ancestors were," she nodded. "Yes, that is why your presence here is both dangerous and important. You may inspire hope or fear, and fear can be more dangerous than any weapon." Eric felt a mixture of fear and determination. He had faced danger before, but never like this, where knowledge and courage were as important as weapons. He realized that humans were capable of something beyond mere fighting. They could inspire, lead, and change outcomes through willpower and wisdom. Leora turned to him. "There is one more thing, something you must know about yourself." Eric raised an eyebrow. "Me? What could I possibly know that I don't already?" "You carry traits your ancestors did not even know were possible. You have intuition, courage, and creativity. Things humans are capable of but few realize. When you are here, your presence, it affects the world around you. You have the ability to change events just by being here." Eric's heart raced. "Change events? You mean I could affect history?" Leora's eyes met his. "Not just history, the future. You are part of a lineage that has always protected Zephyra, and now it is your turn." Eric felt the enormity of her words. He had always been proud to be human, proud of the stories he had heard about bravery and courage. But this was beyond anything he had imagined. He had traveled across stars, fought in battles, and faced unknown dangers, but now he understood that humans were capable of leaving a mark that lasted for centuries, even across worlds. He took a deep breath. "I will do whatever I can. I don't fully understand it yet, but I want to help. I want to protect Zephyra, and I want to understand why my ancestors were here in the first place." Leora's expression softened. "That is all I ask. For now, learn what you can. Observe, understand, and be ready. You may be the one who determines the outcome of what is coming." As the day turned to evening, Eric walked alone through the gardens, thinking about everything he had learned. The sky was painted with colors he had never seen before, and the rivers below glowed faintly, as if reflecting the stars. He thought of the humans in the crystal images, the heroes who had come to Zephyra centuries ago, and wondered if he could live up to their legacy. He did not realize it, but someone was watching him from the shadows of the palace. A silent figure moved carefully, listening to his words and noting his reactions. Not all who observed Eric were friendly. Some would see him as a threat, and not all threats could be fought with courage alone. But Eric did not know that yet. For now, he focused on learning, on understanding the past, and on building a connection with Princess Leora. He felt a strange bond with her, one that went beyond diplomacy or duty. She was strong, intelligent, and aware of dangers he could barely imagine, and she had recognized something in him that even he could not fully understand. As night fell, Eric returned to his crystal room. He looked out at the glowing forests and rivers, thinking about the day's revelations. Zephyra was not just a beautiful world. It was a world full of secrets, challenges, and dangers. And he, a human from Earth, was at the center of it all. He realized one thing clearly. His journey on Zephyra was just beginning. The past had reached out to him, the present demanded his courage, and the future depended on what he would do next. And somewhere deep inside, Eric Mason knew that he was ready. The next morning, Eric woke to the soft light of Zephyra shining through his crystal window. The air was calm, but he could feel a tension beneath the peace. Something had shifted overnight, though he could not name it. His mind was still full of the stories from the library and the strange connection Princess Leora had spoken of. He dressed quickly and stepped out into the palace halls, ready to continue learning. Princess Leora was waiting for him in the main garden, her violet hair catching the morning light. She did not smile, but there was a calmness in her eyes that made Eric feel he was being watched and guided at the same time. "We have visitors," she said simply. Eric looked around. The garden was empty except for them. "Visitors?" he asked, confused. Leora nodded. "Not friendly ones. I do not know if they have come yet or are still watching, but their presence is here. You will see soon enough." Before Eric could respond, a loud vibration shook the palace. The crystal walls shimmered with a sudden energy that made him step back. Leora's eyes narrowed. "They are testing us," she said. "Enemies. They are checking to see what defenses we have. And they will soon realize you are here." Eric's heart began to race. He had faced danger before, but this was different. This was not a simple alien race. It was a civilization that knew Zephyra's weaknesses and might try to use him to gain power. "What do we do?" he asked. Leora turned toward him, her voice calm but firm. "Observe, learn, protect, and be ready. You are not just a visitor here, Eric. You are part of this world now." Moments later, alarms rang across the palace. Eric followed Leora through the halls to a large observation deck that overlooked the city. Outside, he saw ships approaching. They were sleek, dark, and menacing, moving in perfect formation. Zephyra's defense forces began to mobilize, ships of their own rising from hidden bays. Eric watched carefully. These were not simple attackers. They were organized, highly trained, and they had likely been waiting for something, waiting for him. Leora turned to him. "These are the Harkin fleet. They have watched Zephyra for decades, but they do not know everything. They assume humans are weak. That is why you must help." Eric's mind raced. Humans were considered fragile by many alien species, yet here he was, standing on a planet where his presence could change the outcome of a battle before it even began. "How can I help?" he asked, though he felt unsure. Leora's eyes softened slightly. "You have instincts. You understand strategy in ways we do not. You will guide us, and you will fight if necessary." Eric nodded. He had led squads in human military exercises and missions, but nothing compared to this. He studied the fleet carefully. The Harkin ships were faster, but Zephyra's ships were more advanced in technology. He pointed to a narrow valley between two mountains. "We can use that. Their speed is an advantage in open space, but in a confined area we can trap them." Leora raised an eyebrow. "You are sure?" Eric nodded. "It is risky, but it is their weakness. They rely on speed, not tactics. We can turn that against them." The princess considered his words. Then she nodded. "Very well, prepare our forces. I will inform the captains of your plan." Eric moved quickly, helping coordinate the Zephyrian defense. He realized that humans and Zephyrians approached problems differently. Humans thought creatively, often taking risks that seemed reckless but paid off. Zephyrians valued precision and tradition, sometimes too cautious in times of urgency. Eric had to find a balance, combining human intuition with Zephyrian technology. Hours passed as the fleets drew closer. Eric worked with Leora and the defense commanders, adjusting strategies and preparing for the worst. Finally, the first Harkin ships appeared over the horizon, dark silhouettes against the bright sky. Their weapons glowed with deadly energy, and the Zephyrian fleet responded with shields and countermeasures. The battle began with sudden intensity. Lasers cut through the sky, and explosions shook the ground. Eric stood on the observation deck, watching the chaos unfold. Zephyrian ships moved with precision, but the Harkin ships were faster, darting between mountains and attempting to flank them. Eric's plan relied on timing. He pointed to the narrow valley and shouted instructions to the fleet. "Pull back slightly," he ordered. "Guide them into the valley. Do not engage until they are trapped." The Zephyrian captains hesitated, but Leora's presence gave them confidence. Slowly, the fleet adjusted, leading the Harkin ships toward the valley. Eric felt a surge of adrenaline as he watched the enemy fall into the trap. Once the Harkin ships were inside the narrow pass, Zephyrian cannons fired from hidden positions. The first wave was caught completely off guard. Explosions rocked the ships, and they could not maneuver in the tight space. Eric's heart pounded. The risk had worked. The humans of old had often relied on traps and cunning in battle, and now he was using the same methods to protect Zephyra. But the Harkin fleet was not easily defeated. Reinforcements arrived from behind, faster and more numerous. Eric realized the battle was far from over. He turned to Leora. "We need to split their attention. Draw part of their fleet away from the valley." Leora nodded immediately. "I will lead a squadron. Follow my lead, Eric." Together, they directed the Zephyrian ships, splitting the enemy forces. Eric used his knowledge of human tactics to coordinate strikes and feints. They moved unpredictably, using terrain and technology in ways the Harkin commanders did not expect. Slowly, the tide of the battle began to shift. Eric's confidence grew as he realized the Zephyrians were responding well to his guidance. They followed his instructions, adapting quickly. For the first time, he felt the thrill of seeing two civilizations, human and alien, working together seamlessly. But then, a new threat appeared. A massive Harkin cruiser, larger than any ship he had seen, emerged from behind a mountain. Its weapons glowed red, and it moved with terrifying speed. The smaller Zephyrian ships could not match it. Eric felt a chill run down his spine. This was more than a skirmish. It was a test of every skill he had. "Focus fire on that cruiser," he shouted. "Distract it and keep it away from the city." The Zephyrian fleet obeyed, launching coordinated attacks. Eric watched carefully, analyzing every move. He realized the cruiser's shields were strong, but it had a weak point in the rear engine section. "Aim for the engines. Don't waste time on the hull," he ordered. The battle raged for hours. The sky above Zephyra was filled with light and energy as ships moved, fired, and dodged. Eric's voice never faltered, guiding the fleet, making split-second decisions, and predicting the enemy's movements. Leora fought alongside him, commanding her squadron with skill and courage. The two of them became a team, human and Zephyrian, moving with instinct and trust. Finally, the Harkin cruiser faltered. Its engines were destroyed and it spun out of control, crashing into a nearby mountain. The remaining Harkin ships, seeing their leader defeated, began to retreat. The Zephyrian fleet pursued some, while others fled into space, defeated and humiliated. Eric sank to his knees on the observation deck, exhausted but exhilarated. The battle was won, but he knew it was only the beginning. Leora approached him, her eyes filled with respect and something deeper. "You did it," she said softly. You saved Zephyra today." Eric shook his head. "We did it together. I couldn't have done it alone." Leora smiled faintly. "You are right, but you led us. You guided us. And you proved what humans can do when they use their minds and courage. You have changed how Zephyra sees your people." Eric felt a warmth in his chest. He had always believed in human potential, but to see it recognized by an alien civilization was something he had never imagined. "I just hope this is enough," he said quietly. "I hope it will keep Zephyra safe." Leora placed a hand on his shoulder. "It is enough for now, but you must understand this was only a test. Others will come. The galaxy will hear of a human who fought alongside a princess and changed the outcome of a battle. Some will admire you, others will fear you. And some will try to stop you." Eric nodded, understanding the weight of her words. He had faced danger before, but now he realized that courage alone was not enough. Strategy, intelligence, and understanding were just as important. And he had a long way to go to prepare for what was coming. As the sun set over Zephyra, casting long shadows across the crystal rivers and glowing forests, Eric Mason stood with Princess Leora, watching the aftermath of the battle. The city was safe, for now. But the galaxy was vast, and there were enemies who would not forget this day. Eric knew one thing clearly. He could no longer be just an explorer or a soldier from Earth. He was part of something greater, a story that had begun centuries ago and would continue through him. And no matter what challenges came next, he was ready to face them, human courage and ingenuity guiding him every step of the way. And deep inside, he felt the first spark of understanding about why Princess Leora had frozen when she first saw him. Humans were more than they seemed, and he was living proof that they could change the fate of worlds. The morning after the battle, Zephyra's palace was quiet. The city below had returned to its usual rhythm, though the streets were filled with Zephyrians whispering about the human who had helped defend their home. Eric Mason walked through the crystal corridors, still feeling the adrenaline of the previous day. His muscles ached, but he could not stop thinking about the larger dangers that might come. The Harkin fleet had retreated, but they were not gone. Somewhere in the galaxy, their commanders were planning revenge. Princess Leora met him in the palace garden again. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were sharp. "You did well yesterday," she said. "Zephyra owes you more than words can express, but our victory is temporary. There are others who will see what happened and try to take advantage." Eric nodded. "I understand. But what can we do? We defeated them once. Why would anyone challenge Zephyra now?" Leora's gaze swept across the glowing rivers and silver forests. "Because they fear change. They fear what humans represent. You have shown that humans can alter the course of events, that they can influence outcomes. That knowledge is dangerous to many rulers who rely on fear and control." Eric frowned. "So, we need to be ready for more attacks." "Yes," Leora said, "but it is not just attacks. There are enemies here within Zephyra as well. Some do not trust humans. They believe your presence may bring disaster, and others see opportunity. They will try to use you or your actions to gain power for themselves." Eric felt the weight of her words. He had faced enemies in battle, but this was different. This was political, and it was more complex than any fight he had experienced. Strength alone would not be enough. He would need to understand the people, the alliances, and the weaknesses of those who sought power. Leora led him to a high balcony overlooking the city. The Zephyrians below moved with purpose, preparing for the day. "We must build trust," she said. "You have proven yourself in battle. Now you must prove that you can understand our people, our systems, and our culture. Only then will they accept humans as allies rather than threats." Eric took a deep breath. "I will do whatever it takes. I want to help. I want to learn." Over the next few days, Eric was introduced to Zephyra's council. They were a group of advisors and leaders, each responsible for a different part of the planet's defense, economy, and diplomacy. At first, the council members were wary of him. They spoke quietly in Zephyrian, glancing at each other as if deciding whether he could be trusted. Leora explained his presence. Lieutenant Eric Mason is not just a visitor. He has shown courage and wisdom in battle. He carries the spirit of humans who helped our ancestors centuries ago. He can guide us now. Some council members nodded, but others remained skeptical. Eric realized that gaining their trust would be a challenge. He could not rely on his military skill alone. He needed to demonstrate understanding, strategy, and respect for their ways. Over the following week, Eric studied Zephyra's systems with the Council. He learned about their energy networks, defense protocols, and communication systems. He noticed patterns and weaknesses that even experienced Zephyrian commanders had overlooked. Using simple strategies, he suggested improvements to their defenses, creating redundancies and new patrol routes. Slowly, the Council began to recognize his insight. One evening, as Eric walked with Leora through the palace gardens, she spoke quietly. "You are doing well. But there is something else you must understand. The Harkin attack was only the beginning. Others will come. Some may try to deceive you. Some may try to use your presence for their own gain." Eric frowned. "You mean there are spies?" Leora nodded. "Yes. Not all who appear friendly are so, and some will pretend to support you while secretly planning against Zephyra." Eric's mind raced. Humans had dealt with spies and traitors before, but this was different. He was on an alien world, among people whose culture and customs were unfamiliar. Detecting deception would require more than instinct. It would require careful observation, patience, and understanding. Over the next few days, Eric noticed strange behavior among some council members. They asked questions that seemed simple but had hidden motives. They watched him closely, as if testing his reactions. Eric realized he could not respond hastily. He needed to learn their ways, understand their thinking, and predict their actions. Meanwhile, Leora continued to guide him. "Trust is earned, not given," she said. "Observe, listen, and act when necessary. Humans have a talent for seeing patterns that others miss. Use that gift." Eric took her advice seriously. He spent hours observing, asking questions, and learning. He discovered alliances and rivalries within the council, understanding who could be trusted and who might be dangerous. Slowly, he built a network of allies who respected him for his insight and courage. One day, while reviewing defense plans, Eric noticed an unusual pattern in the communication signals. Some messages had been altered or delayed. He traced them carefully and realized someone within the council had been trying to send information to outsiders, likely spies working for the Harkin or other rival systems. Eric brought his findings to Leora. "There is a spy," he said. "Someone is passing information. I can track them, but we must act carefully." Leora's eyes narrowed. "I suspected as much. This confirms it. We cannot confront them directly. They are too clever. You must continue observing, and when the right moment comes, we will act." Over the following days, Eric watched closely. He learned the habits and routines of council members, noticing who met secretly, who avoided certain areas, and who asked unusual questions. Using simple but effective tactics, he gathered enough evidence to identify the spy without alerting them. When the spy was finally revealed, a council member who had pretended to support Zephyra while secretly aiding outsiders, Leora acted swiftly. The spy was removed quietly, without causing panic or distrust among the rest of the council. Eric's careful observation and planning had prevented disaster. The council began to see him not just as a visitor, but as a valuable advisor. They respected his insight, his calm judgment, and his ability to act without revealing fear. Eric felt a sense of pride, but he also knew that the challenges were far from over. One evening, after the council meeting, Leora and Eric walked through the palace gardens. The glowing rivers reflected the stars above, and the soft hum of energy from the crystal walls created a peaceful atmosphere. Leora spoke quietly. You have done more than I expected. The Council trusts you, and our defenses are stronger, but the galaxy is watching. Your presence here has changed how others see humans. Some will respect you, some will fear you, and some will try to destroy what we have built. Eric nodded. I understand, but I will not let Zephyra fall. I will protect it, and I will continue to learn. Leora smiled faintly. That is why I trusted you from the beginning. You are not like other humans we have heard about. You are brave, patient, and clever, and you are willing to learn. That combination is rare, and it makes you special. Eric felt a warmth in his chest. He had always known humans were capable of great things, but to hear it from someone like Leora, a princess of an advanced civilization, was humbling and inspiring. As the night deepened, they sat by a small fountain, the water glowing softly. Eric realized that Zephyra was not just a planet of beauty and technology. It was a world of people with emotions, fears, and ambitions, and he was part of that world now. Over the following weeks, Eric continued to strengthen Zephyra's defenses, teach council members simple strategies, and observe potential threats. He discovered that many systems in the galaxy were wary of humans because they underestimated them. But he also realized that humans could achieve remarkable things when they worked together with others, even aliens. Leora watched him closely, impressed by his determination and insight. She began to see humans differently, not as fragile beings but as capable, resilient, and clever. Eric's actions were changing her perspective, and perhaps the perspective of her entire people. One day, while walking through the city with Leora, Eric noticed a group of children watching them from a distance. They whispered excitedly, pointing at him. Eric smiled, realizing that the stories of humans and their courage had already begun to spread among Zephyra's people. Leora noticed his smile. Even the youngest among us are learning from you, she said. Your presence inspires hope. That is something no weapon can do. Eric nodded. He had always believed in human potential, but now he understood the full weight of what that meant. Humans could inspire, teach, and lead, not just through strength, but through courage, intelligence, and example. As the sun set over the glowing forests and crystal rivers, Eric felt a sense of purpose. He had faced danger, deception, and uncertainty, but he had also learned, grown, and gained the trust of an entire civilization. He knew that greater challenges were coming, but he was ready. He had become more than a visitor. He was a protector, a strategist, and a symbol of human potential, and he understood now why Princess Leora had frozen when she first saw him. Humans were not weak. Humans were capable of extraordinary things, and Eric Mason was living proof. For the first time, he felt truly connected to another world, and he knew that the bond he was building with Leora and Zephyra would shape the future of both their peoples. The night was quiet over Zephyra, but the calm was only temporary. Eric Mason stood on the balcony of the palace, looking out over the glowing rivers and silver forests. The victory over the Harkin fleet had given the planet time to rebuild, but he knew it would not last. Across the galaxy, there were those who had seen humans act, and fear or envy would push them to strike. Princess Leora appeared beside him, her violet eyes reflecting the starlight. You have done well, she said quietly. You have earned the trust of our people, and you have shown strength and wisdom beyond what we expected. But the final test is approaching. Eric frowned. Final test? What do you mean? Leora's expression grew serious. There are forces who will not stop at simple attacks or spies. They will challenge Zephyra itself, and they will test everything you have learned. You must be ready, Eric, more than you realize. Eric took a deep breath. He had faced danger before, but the idea of a final test, one that could threaten an entire civilization, made his stomach tighten. I am ready, he said, though he felt the weight of her words. I will do everything I can to protect Zephyra. Over the next few days, Eric worked closely with Leora and the Council, preparing for any possible threat. They strengthened defenses, trained pilots, and created strategies for both space and ground combat. Eric's experience and insight allowed them to anticipate attacks, and he guided them with calm authority. One evening, as he reviewed defense plans in the library, a message arrived through Zephyra's communication network. It was simple but chilling. The real test begins soon. Be ready or lose everything. Eric felt a shiver run down his spine. This was not a simple warning, it was a declaration of war. Leora joined him immediately. They have sent a challenge, she said. It is not just a test of strength, but of will, courage, and unity. Whoever succeeds will shape the future of Zephyra. Eric nodded. Then we have no choice, we must be ready. The next morning, the sky over Zephyra darkened. A massive fleet appeared on the horizon, larger and more powerful than any Eric had seen. Their ships moved in perfect formation, glowing with weapons of immense energy. These were not the Harken alone. They were joined by other systems that had watched the humans and feared what they represented. The attack was designed to overwhelm, to test Zephyra's defenses and Eric's leadership. Eric took his place on the observation deck, coordinating with Leora and the fleet commanders. He studied the enemy's movements, noting patterns and weaknesses. They rely on formation, he said. They are strong in numbers but predictable. We can use that. Leora nodded. You lead, Eric. We follow your strategy. The battle began with sudden intensity. Energy beams cut through the sky and explosions shook the ground. Zephyrian ships moved with precision, but the enemy's numbers were overwhelming. Eric stayed calm, issuing orders and adjusting tactics. He used terrain, narrow passes, and the planet's natural defenses to limit the enemy's advantages. Hours passed as the battle raged. Eric's mind worked tirelessly, predicting movements, setting traps, and guiding the fleet. Zephyrians were skilled, but they had never faced an attack of this scale. Eric's human intuition and courage kept them focused, and slowly the tide began to turn. Leora led a squadron to protect the palace, ensuring that no enemy could breach the city. Eric coordinated strikes from the valleys, using their knowledge of the terrain to trap enemy ships. One by one, the larger ships were damaged, forced to retreat or destroyed. The enemy's confidence began to waver, but the real challenge came when a massive warship, larger than any seen before, emerged from the darkness. It was armored with energy shields and bristling with weapons. Eric's heart pounded. This was the ultimate test, the leader of the attacking fleet, the one who could destroy everything Zephyra had built. Focus all fire on its shields, Eric shouted. Keep it distracted while we target its engines. Do not waste shots on the hull. The Zephyrian fleet obeyed, moving with precision under Eric's guidance. Leora's squadron engaged the ship directly, drawing its attention and keeping it from targeting the city. Eric watched the battle unfold, analyzing every movement. The massive ship fired with devastating energy, but the combined strategy of humans and Zephyrians began to take effect. Hours turned into a tense struggle. The warship's shields flickered under coordinated attacks, and Eric realized the weak point was not just the engines, but the energy conduit running along its hull. Aim for the conduit, he shouted. That will disable its shields. Zephyrian ships fired with renewed precision. The energy conduit sparked and exploded, causing the massive warship to falter. Leora seized the opportunity, leading a direct attack on the ship's core. With a final, coordinated strike, the warship exploded, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. The enemy fleet, witnessing the destruction of their leader, began to retreat in disorder. Zephyra's defenses, guided by Eric's strategy, had held. The planet was safe, at least for now. Eric sank to his knees, exhausted but exhilarated. He had faced overwhelming odds, yet humans and Zephyrians had succeeded together. Leora joined him, placing a hand on his shoulder. You have done more than I ever imagined, she said. You have proven that humans are not weak. You have shown courage, intelligence, and leadership that has saved our world. Eric shook his head. We did it together. Zephyra's people fought bravely. I only guided them. They made the difference. Leora smiled faintly. Perhaps, but you inspired them. You reminded us of what is possible. Humans carry a strength that cannot be measured in weapons or numbers. You have reminded us all of that today. As the sun rose over Zephyra the next day, the planet began to heal. The city repaired the damage, the forests glowed softly in the light, and the people celebrated their victory. Eric walked through the streets with Leora, noticing the respect and admiration in the eyes of those he passed. Children whispered his name, pointing to the human who had saved Zephyra. Adults nodded with gratitude, and even those who had doubted him before now showed respect. Leora spoke quietly beside him. You have changed our world, Eric. Not just by fighting, but by showing us courage, wisdom, and hope. You are part of Zephyra now, and your legacy will be remembered for generations. Eric felt a warmth in his chest. He had always believed in human potential, but to see it recognized by an entire civilization was humbling and inspiring. I never imagined humans could have such an impact, he said softly. You have, Leora said, and you will continue to. The galaxy has seen what humans are capable of, and it has changed how we all view your people. Over the next few weeks, Eric worked with Leora and the Council to strengthen Zephyra further. They improved defenses, trained new pilots, and created alliances with neighboring systems. Eric's strategies were simple, clear, and effective, and the Zephyrians embraced them. They learned that human ingenuity, courage, and determination could be as powerful as any technology. Eric and Leora grew closer during this time. They spent hours discussing strategy, history, and the future. Leora confided in him about her fears and hopes for her people, and Eric shared stories of Earth and human history. They learned from each other, and a strong bond formed between them, a bond of trust, respect, and perhaps something deeper. One evening, as they walked through the palace gardens, Leora paused by a glowing fountain. The water reflected the stars above, and the soft hum of energy filled the air. Eric, she said quietly, I want you to know something. When I first saw you, I froze because I recognized something I had not seen in centuries. You carry the spirit of those who protected Zephyra long ago, and you have proven that their courage lives on in you. Eric felt a shiver run down his spine. I don't fully understand it, he said, but I will do everything I can to honor them and to protect Zephyra. Leora smiled. You already have, and the galaxy will remember it. Humans are more capable than we ever imagined, and you have shown us the truth. As night fell over Zephyra, Eric looked out at the glowing forests and crystal rivers. He realized that humans had left their mark across the stars long before he was born, and now he had added his own mark. The planet was safe, the people respected him, and he had formed bonds that would last a lifetime. Eric knew the galaxy was vast and full of unknown dangers, but he also knew that humans were capable of greatness. He had seen it in himself, in his ancestors, and in the people around him. He had proven that courage, intelligence, and determination could overcome even the greatest challenges, and somewhere deep inside, he felt the truth of what Leora had said. Humans were not weak. Humans were capable of extraordinary things. And as he stood there under the twin moons of Zephyra, Eric Mason knew that he had become part of a story far larger than himself, a story of hope, courage, and the power of humanity to change the galaxy. Zephyra would remember him. The galaxy would remember him. And the humans of Earth had shown, once again, that they were more than anyone could ever imagine. For Eric Mason, the adventure had begun centuries ago in the past, and now, in the present, he had ensured that the legacy of humans would shine brightly across the stars. The galaxy would never underestimate humans again.